So a continuation of this timber frame, the eaves detail could be to add in the top of the top detail of the window. All right, so that's what we're going to carry on with here. So we're just going to bring down our block wall here. So let's bring it down lightly first, and we're going to add in a couple of rows or 2 rows of blocks. So 22.5, bit of a gap, 22.5 to there, and then I have my concrete lintel. Alright, so my concrete lintel is 100 by 70 or 60, whatever way it works out. Alright, so here we have the concrete lintel. Alright, so that does the opening for the concrete part. Alright, so for the outer leaf, and then we need to look at how we create the opening for just move the up small bit. How we create the opening then for the timber frame as well. Alright, so what we'll do is we will bring a line straight across from here. So this is going to be the bottom of that. So if we just bring down the outside of the timber frame. Alright, so we'll bring everything down in a second. There is a 50mm cavity closer, and then there is 50mm of insulation going across here until it reaches the sheeting material. So I'm going to bring down the sheeting material first, and then I'm going to measure up 50, bring that across, and then bring down the outside of the wood fibre board. That gives me where my cavity closer is there. Alright, so that's in position there, and then we have our normal rigid insulation then going right the way across here. Alright, so that runs over to the sheeting material, and then we'll have our timber supports then on top for the likes of this. Alright, so we have 4 lintels turned up on their sides. Alright, and then we have a top rail as well. Okay, so it's going to be the timber that slots in here, or excuse me, that sheet material should come down the outside of that, and then we have our symbol then just on this, please. Alright, so then we have, that's 200mm, so then we have 4 50mm boards, so 4 5mm, and they go up 200. Okay, so there the timber's put up on its edge, right, to give greater support. Then we have a top rail, and then we have a head plate then that goes on top of that. Alright, so another 5 and 5, except this time they are going across the stud frame. Alright, so very similar to the top up there. Like, there's an awful lot of timber there, but there has to be to support the opening of the window, right? Because there's such an amount of weight on top of this. Alright, so then we can bring down the quilted insulation and finish that off. Okay, so we have an awful lot of this detail done now. Okay, so I'm just going to bring down the breather membrane. I'm just going to bring it down so it carries on down the full length of that wood fibre board, and then should go inside of that cavity closer. Right, it's going to come up black there now. Right, so it should come down the whole way there. Then we have to bring down our service cavity, excuse me. Bring that down there. Right, and I'm just going to carry on my insulation coming down through that service cavity. Alright, so now we have our opening done up here, and then we are in a position then to add in the window frame. Alright, so in most drawings they're going to give you an overall size for this window frame. Alright, and it's going to be positioned. Usually you'd have your windowsill down underneath, alright, and you would just bring up your lines, bring up your frame accordingly to that. Here we're just going to position it just at the start of this cavity closer here. Right, usually they say what size they want the frame to be. In most cases it's around 150 by 150. That just has to fit into, and then the actual shape that it takes doesn't make too much odds outside of that. Okay, so I wouldn't get too bogged down on it. And I always get into the habit now of putting in triple glazing unless it states otherwise. Unless it states otherwise in a question. Alright, so there's one panel. There's two. And there's three. Alright. Right, so then the other thing it'll ask you for in the question is a thermally broken window frame. Right, so window's going to be made up of different sections. Alright, so we will try and have insulation going right the way around through it. Right, which is what I'm doing here. Almost like a rigid insulation up here. So then you have your 3 layers of glass, or 3 panes of glass, excuse me. What do we need to finish off? Right, so on our timber frame we have our plaster slab coming down here and our skim finish. That's going to have to go in to meet the window frame, obviously to seal that. Then you would have an air tightness tape put onto that. Okay, so the air tightness tape would be wrapped around, trying to seal all the joints really. Okay, so that come down there. You wouldn't be able to see it inside. And then on the outside, then we have our plaster that's come down here. We have then what's called a reveal. Right, it just protrudes out ever so slightly. It will be put on first before this plaster is put on. It's kind of put on separately, and it just seals off the window frame then as well. Alright, so that would be adding on, that section there, adding on a top of a window detail onto an eaves detail. Right, it is a combination style drawing. Alright, so it's just something to watch out for. What else can we put in when we are at it? So we could put in an anchor strap. Right, so we could put in an anchor strap there, come across, have it rising up, and then it might be nailed on to the wood fibre board. Right, so that's an anchor strap there. Then we could look at DPC then as well. Alright, so we would want to make sure to have step DPC make sure there's no moisture getting in. So come down here, again down at an angle so it runs away. Comes down here and just outside of that window frame. Now it's going to be blotchy there now on me, apologies. Alright, so it just comes down there and just down the inside of the frame. So if any moisture does get in here, it comes down. And the wall tie is only real narrow, it's not a sheet, whereas this DPC is a sheet and it'll take the moisture away from the window. Alright, so that's just an extra little bit of detail for that drawing.